Often when I'm thinking of new wave artists and all of the sinfully amazing things they do with their instruments and their songs, I'm thinking about England. But did you know there were some young folks growing up in Philadelphia getting together in the mid-80s to really contribute quite a few albums and dance hits to the synthwave movement? I'm talking about Book of Love. Today we're going to look at their single Boy, through which we'll learn two things. Number one, what is a minor chord? Is it really that big of a deal? How is it different than a major chord? Truth is, it's not that hard. So we'll do that. And then secondly, another cameo by the chord wheel as we look at, in the last video, we talked about the 1-4-5-1 chord progression, but let's look a little further and see what Book of Love did with Boy to now add in 4 chords, and yet they all kind of still go together as we saw in that last video. So I'm Erin, this is Newish Wave. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. We will have also a little time on the piano with some excerpts from that song, Boy, which came out on the album, self-titled Book of Love album in 1986. Now, I was 13, and I do remember kind of thinking, wait a second, are these girls? And yes, it's a 75% woman-led band. I never saw them. If you did, please let me know in the comments. I think that would have been really exciting. I was 13 when that album came out, and it wasn't going to happen. They don't tour anymore. But let's get started by looking at what are the 4 chords of Boy, and then we'll talk about what are the relationships between these chords, and one of them is a minor chord, and what does that mean? All right, so let's open up with the 4 chords that we're going to be looking at today. We have G, D, E minor, and C, and when we talk about E minor, we'll also say, well, what makes it a minor? And then also, what role does it get to play in a song because of it? How does it add to the harmony to use a minor chord? Book of Love was really good at moving between major and minor chords. So let's just get a quick excerpt of maybe the part of the song that you would recognize if you're kind of like, which one does she mean here? And it'll feature the 4 chords, kind of go through them twice, and I'll signal which one in the notes too. So we'll look at it here and then on the keys. Chord 1, 2. And then we come back to that home, right? That tonic, that chord 1, which in this song is G. So let's look at those chords we were just hearing on the keyboard. And you're going to hear me go through the 4. I'll put on the screen which chords they are. Start doing whatever I wanted as long as I stuck with those 4 chords, and you could still hear the song coming through, right? So once you hear the 4 chords, you can kind of start hearing the roles they play. So we want to talk about 2 things here. How do these chords relate to each other? Like we learned a little bit last time, what matters is how the chords are related to each other. It's in between the chords that we create that sound, right? Something couldn't sound surprising without whatever came before it. Something isn't a surprise without context, right? So it's in context. And here we see on the chord wheel what we're dealing with. Whoopsies, right here. I'm in key of G, 1 sharp, but you'll see, look at this, C, G, D, E minor. Those are the very chords I was saying was in this song. So again, they have a similar relationship. The last song piece we looked at with New Order, we had these 2 together. And now we're looking at these 3 as the main chords, but then there's E minor. Okay, lots to talk about, including why is it on the 2nd rung of the circles? Why does it have a little M? And what is the big whoop about being a minor chord? That's what we're going to look at now. Okay, we'll kind of zero in on the feeling of the minor chord by going through that progression again where and you'll hear that the minor chord brings out something different. So we're feeling like, here's our home chord, our number 1 chord. And another kind of related 5 chord, the 1 and the 5, like I mentioned on the last video, they kind of sound like they agree with each other. So nothing really huge transition is happening here when we go from G to D, because they are a 1 and a 5. Sounds pretty normal, right? I feel like we need some suspense. Aha. Let's do a minor chord. Let's go back to major. Whoops. Sorry. So the minor chord has a slightly different flair, right? Where it brings in, have you thought about this other thing? Harmonizes nicely with the major chords and adds interest to the song. So what makes something a minor chord structurally? Let's look down at the keys. It's a very simple difference between a major and a minor chord, no big deal. If I want to play something in C major, I've got these 3 notes. If I want to play something in C minor, I just move the middle one down 1 step. And do you hear how it already starts to sound a little mysterious? That's why so many dark wave songs are full of minor chords and in minor keys often, because it's just a wonderful, dark, uncertain sound that we get from that. So let's look at a couple more. We could have G major, or we could have G minor. So the difference, just like I said with our new order F and C, or F and C chords in the last video, I said what mattered about those 2 chords is sort of the difference between them, the distance between them. Same goes with notes in a chord. We get a major chord if between our 1st and 3rd finger there are 4 steps, and I'll show you what that means. And between our 3rd and 5th, there are 3 steps. So let's look closely over here where I have my hand set up. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. 1, 2, 3 steps. If I want to go to a minor, I step down the middle. Now I reversed it. I've got 1, 2, 3 steps between the 1 and 3 finger, and 1, 2, 3, 4 steps between the 3 and the 5 finger. So, congratulations. You know all about a minor versus a major chord. That's all it is. So let's just conclude by hearing them in action a little more, and we'll think of just any random part of the song. We're going to hear those chords running through it. So we might have something like, and now it's so right. Get ready for the minor. And now it's so right without those boys, without those boys. I stay at home at night, I stay at home at night, and I play with my toys. Kind of wonder what she means there, right? It's kind of an early feminist song. But there you have it. What difference does it make when you bring in a minor chord, especially when you get off of the 1, 4, 5, and we ended up bringing in a 6 chord there, which is a minor chord. All things we're going to be talking about as we go through. And you hear also the slight difference that it makes in the tonality, bringing in some questioning, bringing in some disagreement right when we need it to add interest to that piece. If you didn't grow up with Book of Love, check them out. They weren't played that widely. They were club music, but they're pretty good. And there's a lot to hear there in their self-titled album. We've got a lot of happy songs with even happy titles and lyrics in major keys with major chords. And then you'll hear when you get to some of the more songs like Still Angry and like upset kind of songs, you start hearing more minor chords and minor keys. All right, so let me know, what are your favorite songs that use minor chords or minor keys? And talk about them in the comments, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for being here.